The first thing I'd like to say is we need to be much faster and much more efficient in how we're getting out the door multilateral climate finance. Look, the world's on fire, the Titanic is sinking, pick your analogy, and it's clear that we need to be faster, we need to be more efficient, we need to be more predictable, and also more equitable.
So with our latest analysis shows that annual finance flows in 2021 and 2022 reached almost 1.3 trillion, nearly doubling compared to the previous biennium. And this is an astonishing rate of growth, the highest we have observed in the past decade.
We know that funding targets for climate finance in emerging markets and developing economies have not been met. And the report trends reflect this reality that financing levels are not moving in the right direction.
How can we bridge the climate finance gap? And how more private capital can be mobilized or perhaps made more accessible to countries in the global south?
Providing sufficient climate finance to developing countries and emerging economies is a primary goal of the World Bank. In 2022, we provided $31.7 billion of climate finance, about half of which was for adaptation. But we realize that's just a drop in the bucket.
We've put together a voluntary working group of stakeholders that comprises of insurers, investors, pension funds, aid agencies, engineering firms, and insurance consulting firms for the last 3 years to look at how blended finance can address this challenge around cities.
By providing highly competitive financing, CIF reduces risks for investors, whereby lowering barriers to piloting new climate technologies and scaling up proven solutions.
Because blended finance is not new, and blended finance usually uses elements in a fund which are all proven it works. We also see the development of the projects in a positive way, but then when the rubber hits the road, when you want to bring the private capital together with these projects on the ground, that is not necessarily easy.
When it comes to the innovative instruments, there's been a lot of discussion around the de-risking, and which is good. This is a new kind of a lexicon which is coming up in the climate finance landscape. And it's actually quite welcoming to see that it is being explored, it's being applied. And some of the cases, actually, there has been some kind of successful elements as well.
Ambire Global has been working on sustainable finance taxonomy development projects around the world with Climate Bond Initiative. And I think that's one tool that can be really useful to kind of foster this ecosystem and provide clear definitions on criteria and thresholds on what projects or activities or assets can be actually green, sustainable, or climate friendly.
But we haven't really spoken about the impacts that local communities are facing in their day-to-day. And the challenge in the big picture is that we've spoken about this before, the finance is not enough. The investment needs to increase substantially in adaptation in particular. But the problem is that the smallest amounts are reaching the most vulnerable countries.
We are working on financing instruments, so we feel that there is a mismatch between the financing that is available and the needs on the ground in terms of size, in terms of type, in terms of risk appetite.
Most of the low and middle income countries, and I would even say high income countries, have is the beginning of where they actually select the projects. They do not really understand the implications of what the impact from climate change is going to be for the next 20-40 years.
But one thing that is very important to talk about here, which actually addresses the place of coordination. In fact, part of the call that came from the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan last year was around the fact that MDBs must do more. We must continue to do more. And as MDBs, we're currently looking at how can we do more.
We have all sort of financial instruments that could be utilized by engaging the private sector, engaging the national banks, engaging local entrepreneur or any other entities to using equity, guarantor, highly concessional loans, as well as seed support or readiness support, as well as grant as an instrument. But obviously we need to look at actually where and how those can actually fit and how that could bring an optimization to creating an impact.